If you're pregnant and you're feeling the need to clean out the garage, reorganize the sock drawer, or spend countless hours picking the perfect paint for your new nursery, you're not alone. I'm Jennifer Shear, a clinical psychologist specializing in women's issues, and today we're exploring this pre-labor ritual, also known as your nesting instinct. This is Preggy Pals, episode 31.
Is that a plus sign?
Pink or blue? Hospital or home birth?
What type of food should I be eating?
I think I just peed myself. I'm pregnant, and I have to exercise.
What pregnancy glow?
Wait, was that a contraction? Gotta make these pants fit. I've got kinkles. What do you mean there's more than one?
You've got the symptoms, and now you've got the support you need for a happy 9 months. This is Preggy Pals, your pregnancy your way. Welcome to Preggy Pals, broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. I'm your host, Sunny Galt. Do you have a pregnancy question for our team of experts? Call our Preggy Pals hotline at 619-866-4775, and we'll get your questions answered, and we'll also include it on a future episode. We're also searching for unique and powerful birth stories to share with our listeners. If you would like to share your story, simply visit preggypals.com/submit your story and send us some initial information. And while you're on our website, click on our member section and learn all about the Preggy Pals Club. You'll get all of our archived episodes, bonus content after the show, transcripts, and much more. Okay, we have a couple panelists joining us here. One is in the studio and one is over the phone. So let's start here in the studio. Stephanie, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Soffeld. I'm 29. I'm a gemologist. Due January 9th with my first baby, a girl, and we are having a hospital birth.
Okay, and Lindsay is joining us over the phone. Lindsay, tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Lindsay. I'm 26 years old. I'm an administrative assistant for our family's business, and we are planning a home birth with our first baby due December 16th, and it's a girl.
All right. And where are you calling from, Lindsay?
I'm from Maine.
From Maine. And how has your pregnancy gone so far? Pretty good?
So far, yeah, it's been super easy. Haven't had any complications. We've been really lucky. So
that's awesome. And have you experienced the nesting instinct yet in your pregnancy?
Well, it's funny because everybody always talks about nesting, and that might be a sign you're going into labor, but I'm kind of a chronic nester, I think. My husband would agree. So I do it all the time, every day. I'm constantly organizing things, so it's kind of hard to tell if it's any new instinct or if it's just my nature in general kicking into high gear. But
I feel you. I'm
the
kind
same
of
way.
Yeah, you too. We're just organized women. Yeah. What can I say? Okay, we're going to talk more about that after the break. So we had a chance to review a pregnancy app. The app is called Numerology Baby Namer, and this particular app is available on the iPhone. I believe it's, $2.99 if you were to purchase it, I think. So here's the thing. I don't know a lot about numerology, okay? But I love baby names. I'm one of those crazy women that, I find out I'm pregnant and, I'm, only 4 weeks pregnant, and I'm like, what am I going to name the baby? Names mean a lot in our family. Obviously I have a more unusual name and I grew up with that. So I place a lot of stock in names just because I really enjoyed my name growing up. And so names are a big deal. So I was really excited to test this out. Stephanie, you had a chance to test this out. What were your initial thoughts?
I did. Well, we do not have a name yet for our baby girl. It has been
tough.
Yeah, to say the least. It's the hardest decision, I think, so far. And yeah, because names mean so much.
Right.
And yeah, I don't really follow numerology and don't know a whole lot about it. Yeah. But, we plugged in some of the names that we were thinking about. Uh-huh. Some of them I was like, oh, well, maybe I don't want to name her that, where I was like, it said something about being stubborn and strong-willed, and I'm like, well, she's my daughter, so she's going to be that anyway. I don't know if her name, I don't know if I want to add that with the name.
Right.
But we are using only one middle name, so the middle name and obviously the last name are set. So it was funny to kind of read those things, and I even put in my own my own birthday and with my maiden name.
Right.
And it was fairly accurate. I don't know how.
I know. I was actually really surprised because it's one thing if you're putting in information about your kid because you don't know what your kid's going to be like. So is it right? Is it wrong? You don't really know.
And it uses the due date as opposed to their actual birthday. So technically that's not super accurate either.
And I guess we should kind of explain, because I had to actually go online and see what numerology was, because I think the app doesn't necessarily really explain the background of numerology and stuff.
It should.
Yeah, it should. And it does have kind of a pretty lengthy background as far as it being used throughout history. But numerology is basically using your date of birth, and in this case, the number of characters in your baby's name to determine what type of personality they're going to have. So I don't necessarily buy into the whole thing of numerology, I have to admit, but it's kind of one of those fun things to do, kind of like, oh, am I having a girl or a boy? Well, is my pillow facing the north end of my house or the south? It's one of those things that I don't put a lot of stock into it, but it's I think it's kind of a fun thing to do. It was
fun. Yeah, my husband and I were having a few giggles over it.
Yeah, so Lindsay, I would love to get your take on this.
We did download the app, and my husband's kind of a non-believer. I'm kind of convinced into anything if you give me enough cool information about it. But we do have the name picked out, and we've had it for a long time. My husband just said it one day, and we were like, yep, that's it. That's going to be her name, and there was no more discussion. But it's been a surprise to the family, so that's kind of a point of contention. We're not telling anybody.
Right.
But we put it in, and it's one of those things where, like Stephanie said, we don't know the baby yet, so it's hard to tell if it's accurate or not. But I did read a couple of the descriptions to my husband, and he was like, oh, yeah, that's going to be our kid for sure. And it seemed like it was kind of a mix between his personality and mine. But I definitely think it's something fun, and if you have a name picked out, it's neat to start thinking about, what her personality is going to be like and what she's going to like and not like. But
right. But we also asked some of our listeners to test out this app, and here's what they had to say.
Hi, Peggy Pals. This is Randy Levinson. I had such a fun time with this. I have no idea how accurate it is because I don't have a background in numerology. But we typed our son's potential name, and we were happy to hear all the different attributes associated with his name. And it was a really fun app, and I give it 5 stars. Thanks. Bye.
Hi, Sonny. This is John. Numerology Baby Namer is like a lot of other pre-pregnancy products. It's not really necessary, but it can offer a little bit of fun to part of the process of having a baby. What I like about it is it's got a pretty extensive list of names, and you can quickly see what the meanings of them are. What I didn't like was it had a pretty basic layout, and that the due date functionality didn't work on the iPhone, but it did work on the iPad. Numerology Baby Namer is fun in kind of the way that a horoscope is fun. I wouldn't begrudge parents that bought this app, looking to have a little bit of fun, but I definitely wouldn't say that Numerology Baby Namer is an app that all new parents need to get.
Well, we definitely want to thank everyone that tested out this app for us. Keep in mind, Preggy Pals now has a free app. It's available in the Amazon and iTunes marketplace. It's great for moms on the go because it automatically updates with the latest episodes, and it even allows you to connect with the show through our social networking sites. So be sure to check it out. Today, we are learning all about the nesting instinct. Jennifer Scheer is joining us here in the studio. Jennifer is a clinical psychologist specializing in women's issues. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Good to be back.
Okay, so let's talk about this nesting instinct. First of all, is it even an instinct? We say that, but do all mothers get this? What is it?
No, all mothers do not get it. But for those who do and get it very strongly, I think the word instinct fits very well.
Is it kind of like mother's instinct? Is it kind of along those lines? We say, oh, I have that mother's instinct, like I know something bad's going to happen, or I know how to do this just because I'm female.
Yes, I think it's instinctual in the sense that there's like a deep driven need that kind of bubbles up.
Okay.
And it's organized around wanting to prepare for the baby and really helping to ensure that you've got an environment where your baby can thrive. So in that sense, it's very biological, primitive, and instinctual.
Okay, that makes sense. Do men get this as well?
We don't associate the word nesting with men.
I would say that in a way my husband does,
really?
though. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I believe exactly like you're saying that there is a deep feeling that comes out in men as well, and sometimes it's about the organization or financially getting
finances
everything in order.
Yeah, that's true. Finances. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's still about mom and dad really being driven to prepare that we are ready for baby.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Lindsay, how has your husband reacted? Do you think he's ever experienced the nesting instinct?
I asked him about that actually, if he thought he was nesting at all, because our whole house we tore down last year and has been renovating, so our nursery is literally still sheetrock and sawdust, and oh my God. So now we're kind of down to the wire here. We've got 7 weeks left, and I think he's starting to feel the pressure. But he said that he thinks that men nest, but that they have a due date in mind. So it's like any other project at work or anything else. He's like, I have the due date in mind, and as long as I get everything done by that date, in my mind, I'll be fine. Yeah. So I think this whole time I've been kind of running around and organizing random drawers, and every once in a while he'll find me, out in the garage going through my gardening supplies for no reason at all. But he's definitely got more goals set. But he's getting ready, I think, and I definitely think it's instinctual too.
Yeah. Yeah. Jennifer, what is the goal of nesting? What are our bodies doing and why?
Well, there's the biological goal and the psychologicals as well, and a lot of times they're aligned. Like we just talked about, it's pretty much an innate drive to prepare for the baby in terms of ensuring that you've got a home environment that, where baby will be safe and protected and can grow and thrive. Psychologically, there's a lot more layers to it, of course. One is about all the investment in preparing for what the baby's needs are going to be, but there's also a lot of activity going on for men and women to ensure that they've got some control of what feels very out of control and very uncertain. So the more concrete things you can actually do, the better you can feel towards feeling like you're working towards helping this process and doing the best you can as a to-be parent. And also psychologically, a lot of times there's an element of nesting that's about mom and dad, tying up loose ends, organizing a previous chapter in your life, a lot of cleansing in order to create more psychic energy and room for this new role as parent.
I was going to say, one of the things that I experienced, and I don't know if this is nesting per se, but it happened, I believe, with both pregnancies. And that is, I would get up in the middle of the night, because I had a hard time sleeping anyways, but this is even earlier in the pregnancy. I would get up in the middle of the night, and I wouldn't go around cleaning stuff, but it was more organizing the thoughts in my head. It was doing stuff on the computer. And at the time, I was planning for all these shows, the launch of Preggy Pals and Parent Savers and the Boob Group. And there was a lot to do. And in my head, I just had to wrap my brain around everything and figure out what my next steps were. So it wasn't like a physical thing for me. But my husband was like, why? You need to sleep. Why are you getting up in the middle of the night? And for me, it was just like it's like I'm waking up after I had, 10 hours of sleep. It's just... It felt instinctual.
And it also sounds like it felt energized.
Oh, yeah. I had tons of energy.
Yeah, and a lot of times people talk about that feeling like all of a sudden there is this burst of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's exactly what you're describing, that even if it's not specifically organized around the baby to be, there's a lot of energy going on in terms of us kind of integrating what's happening to us and where we're going and what we want to accomplish.
Yeah. Lindsay, what are some of the ways you've experienced the nesting instinct?
Well, I make a lot of lists. I do that all the time, but lately it's all been lists about getting the house ready. And for us, it's even more getting the house physically ready because we're having a home birth. So every night before I go to sleep, we're running through lists of, okay, well, we need some towels, and we need to order this, and I need to go to the store and get that, and be prepared for the home birth so the midwives have everything they need. But I definitely think there's something to what Jennifer said about the emotional tying up of loose ends, too, because a lot of the things that I have been doing, just been going through old files. I've been going through old plastic totes of high school diplomas and certificates and pictures. So I think there's definitely something to assessing where you've been in your life, and then it also kind of closes those chapters and gets you ready for the new chapter. And then obviously as I get closer to the birth, I just want the house to be clean. I just want it to be ready for the baby. I don't want there to be any dust on the floor because I hate the idea of her crawling on the floor and getting dust and things like that. So it's both physical and emotional, I think, for sure.
What are some of those symptoms, would you say, Jennifer, of nesting? Like, how would a woman recognize? We talked about the sudden burst of energy. Are there other signs? We said it didn't have to be related specifically to the baby, which is kind of news to me because when I think of nesting, I think of, oh my gosh, like in Lindsay's case, I have to get the nursery ready. We just have sheetrock. What am I going to do, right? But what are some of the other symptoms that we experience?
Okay, well, first, let's not call it symptoms.
Like it's a disease, right?
These are behaviors that can aid us in a wonderful way. I mean, typically it is focused on baby stuff. That's more obvious and I think universal,
or at least making room for baby.
Making room for baby.
Yeah, like we were talking about tying up loose ends.
Yeah. So some of the things that women talk a lot about is clearly the nursery. But a lot of times there's a specific feeling or need a woman is trying to get, like the exact tone of the paint, or the organization has to, you do it over and over and over because you're just trying to fit almost like an aesthetic sense of what feels right.
Yeah.
And, and again, biologically, we're driven to perfect, the environment for the baby, for survival.
Yeah.
But, but on an emotional level, we want to make sure that we're not, displacing unnecessary anxiety, I think, in these little behaviors, to try to, also have big picture,
right,
when you're doing it. And again, like I said, I think the doing is great. You're investing in the process. But, if it becomes a little, overwhelming or excessive, to be able to take that step back and know, like, okay, this makes sense. I get why I'm doing this. It's all in the good of being a wonderful parent.
Yeah, I mean, one of the behaviors, and I think this was kind of what you were talking about, is you could potentially get a little anal retentive of stuff, right? It's like you said, I have to have that exact paint color, and it may take our partners to say, listen, crazy woman, back off. It doesn't have to be so exact or whatever.
I definitely think the husbands are good balancing for that too, because a couple of times my husband has found me like poring over the tiniest little details of the nursery, like what color the shelf over the changing table is going to be, and I can't get off of it. And he finally has to say, Lindsay, the baby doesn't care if the shelf is pink or green. She's going to enjoy it either way. It's almost like I'm having this house guest, and it's the most important house guest, and I'm trying to set the room perfectly for her. And he has to remind me, like, she's a newborn. As long as you feed her and change her diapers, she'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, it's
true.
I
want to add, because what you're saying is so true in terms of, like, you're using that word perfect. You just want it to be perfect. And, one of the things that when I'm working with women, especially during postpartum periods, and again, during the pregnancy is, let's examine the perfectionistic quality or standard that you're, projecting and putting out for yourself, because, we want to feel good. I think getting it right for yourself as a mom, even though baby's not going to be affected at this point, for yourself is very important, because that's part of empowering yourself. It's part of working into this new role and feeling good and confident about it. But again, if we're going towards perfection or we get lost in that, that's when, partners are so helpful to say, take a step back. You're going to be great, even if it's not exactly the way you're envisioning. That's that keeps happening over and over as a mom, where everything you project, you got to modify.
Right.
So it's practice.
Now, can the nesting instinct happen for each pregnancy, or are we mainly talking about first-time moms?
Oh, that's a great question.
Because I would think you have more, maybe excitement, maybe that's the wrong word, but there's a lot more unknowns,
the
with
first
your first time
it's all new.
Yeah.
I think nesting, and I think this preparational process and psychologically reorganizing self, I think that can take place with multiple pregnancies, because each one's a different experience. As a woman, you're at a different point in your life.
Yeah, your life's different.
You're coming to motherhood with already having kids with you. There's so many more dynamics that get thrown in there. So this is a process that I think, for some women, they never really experience it as in this way that we're describing, and there's nothing wrong with that, but for many women, I think this is something that you dip into over and over again.
Well, and that's a good point, because I do feel that I experienced the nesting instinct, if you will, during both pregnancies, but they express themselves differently. I think the first time around, I was planning a nursery. I was trying to figure all that out. I knew I was having a boy, so all the sports equipment had to be perfect in there, and everything had to match perfectly, and I needed that certain dust ruffle thing under the bed and bumper and all this stuff that was just completely ludicrous and they don't even use. But it was important to me then. But then the second time around, my life had changed. We were in the process of moving, so I couldn't really decorate a nursery. So I think maybe that's why I shifted to more of a, what do I have control over? Okay, I'm planning this business. I'm planning this opportunity. And I think maybe for me, it was a mental shift from physically doing things with the first pregnancy and then mentally trying to process everything, because there wasn't anything I could really do physically.
Yes.
I
think there is a burst of creative energy that a lot of women talk about also, because think about it, there's an excitement and a momentum in itself as you're shifting. Right. And I think it does, a lot of women, there are new ideas and parts of self that take birth during pregnancy. Yeah. So when we talk about it being not necessarily organized around, the baby's room, but to really listen to your own creative impulses, and it might, inform you about new parts of yourself you want to explore.
Right. Well, and in a sense, I was kind of giving birth to numerous things at once. It was my baby, it was a new house and what that looked like. It was a new project in my life. So there were a lot of, things going on. But then I also think, and we talked about this earlier, that you can take it too far. And that's something that I definitely want to touch on after the break, because we know that nesting helps to prepare us for the arrival of our little one. But is there a downside to this, and how do we recognize those symptoms? We'll explore all that when we come back. Welcome back. Today we are talking about the nesting instinct, and joining us is our special expert, Jennifer Scheer. She's a clinical psychologist specializing in women's issues. So Jennifer, we talked about this a little bit in the first part of our show, but I want to explore this. I want to dive a little deeper into this. So we know nesting is a great way to prepare ourselves for the baby, mentally, physically, and all that good stuff. But we can push this a little too far, right? We talked a little bit about our partners coming in and saying, hey, they're a crazy person. You may not want to call your partner crazy, by the way, but just think that. But anyways, we may want to back off a little bit, because, while we do have the sunburst of energy, we do have a little one arriving that is going to take up a lot of energy as well.
Oh, yeah.
And you know this firsthand, because you have a little one at home. So how do we control that?
I think it's about pacing, so if there's a desire to do some, remodeling in the home, break it down into more, smaller steps. I wouldn't say, don't do it, but just, you got to pace it. You've got to look at the timing of things, look about how much energy it's going to take from both partners. And figure out, what's reasonable to help you feel like you've invested, you have achieved something during this time period that feels good and whole, but not to overdo it, because you don't want to then create more chaos and overwhelm because you're opening up too many doors when you're really, needing to ready things and kind of organize.
Right. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the intensity of your nesting instinct. And I know you guys are at varying levels of your pregnancy, but Stephanie, let's start with you. If you were to rate your intensity of nesting right now on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give it?
Like Lindsay was saying earlier, I feel like I'm kind of nesting all the time. Like, I'm always organizing, reorganizing. Right. So I feel like I'm at a constant level of like 6.
Okay. Okay. So you haven't felt like a surge of energy?
No, not really. Although, I mean, there have been times where I get really obsessed with needing to do something, like had my baby shower last week or a couple weeks ago, I was obsessed with putting together the pack and play. I mean, I have 10 weeks to go, and this baby is not going to be in that pack and play immediately, but I was obsessed with putting it together.
It's just because it was cute.
Yeah, you wanted to and I just wanted to see, I'm like, well, okay, no tools required. Cool, I can do that. And there was this one part that I just could not get. I called my next door neighbor. I'm like, I feel like an idiot.
So it turned into an obsession.
And then she comes over. She's like, well, I can't do that. I don't know how long have you been trying to do this? And she's like, okay. So she takes it over to her husband. Finally took her husband like 10 minutes to do it. And so it wasn't just me. So I was glad. But this simple thing that I thought would take, 20 minutes ended up taking like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up a good point. And Lindsay, I definitely want to get your take on it as well. But first, Jennifer, if someone already has that, I don't know, that urge and is, always very organized anyways. Those people, do they still have the opportunity to even increase that more, right? They still can get a nesting instinct that really bumps them over and beyond, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just because you're organized doesn't mean that you can't feel another surge of organization or whatever.
And I feel like I've probably just been pacing it pretty well, just because that's how I always do things. And I know that there's so much to be done, and in my head I like kind of freak out. I'm like, okay, this and this needs to be done. So I'm like, okay, I'll do one thing at a time, and it'll eventually get done, and it'll be done on time, and then I won't have to be worried about doing it all at once.
Right.
So,
I think the danger comes when, you take on certain projects and then there are glips in it and you get stuck. And the danger is when you start beating yourself up over it and it starts permeating that sense of, oh, am I going to be a good mom if I can't complete this?
And we
this
do
is so
that
little.
all the time,
This is so
right?
yeah. But the thing is that this is not a defining moment of.
If you can't put together a pack and play, you should not be a mother. I'm just going to state that right now. No, I'm just kidding.
But
Totally
there's
kidding.
no real baby there to be getting the feedback from. So that we get completely obsessed with very trivial tasks as kind of measures of, good, I can do it. I'm on my way.
Right.
But these are not reflections of nurturance or attunement or.
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Lindsay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your nesting instinct right now?
I'd say right now I'm probably at a 7 or 8, with a little room for the last couple of weeks to, get everything put together and get the clothes ready and all of the little details. But I kind of make that key mistake that Jennifer was talking about. I'll start one project and then I'll get distracted and start another one. And so instead of sort of closing the doors, I'm creating a little bit of chaos for myself. So I'm not sure. I'll probably have to start dealing with that soon.
Well, I think we always want to better the situation too. So I know for me, when I start organizing and doing stuff, part of that process is, how do I improve this? So I may come across something and it's like, oh, I could just organize that, but it'd be better if I did this, and I end up having all these little mini projects within my one project, and then I just become overwhelmed. And you put pregnancy hormones on top of that, and
exactly,
you have an interesting personality. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and now I'm kind of reminding myself too, there are things that I wanted to get done around the house. I have these running lists. I have this notebook in my purse of an ongoing list, and then I have to remind myself, well, there are things that you can do after the baby's born too. Like you can organize your sock drawer while the baby's taking a nap. It doesn't necessarily have to be done before due date. Putting the crib together, however, is pretty essential before due date. So I think it's prioritizing too.
That's a really good point. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts and your experiences in the nesting instinct. We would love to learn ways that you, our listeners, are experiencing your nesting instinct. You can leave a comment on our Facebook page or on our website on the page for this episode. And don't forget, the conversation is not over yet, at least not for our members. If you want to access more great content after the show, be sure to become a member of the Preggy Pals Club. You can visit preggypals.com for more information. Before we wrap today's show, here are some tips for keeping your baby nursery on a budget from Cynthia Caden.
Hello, Preggy Pals. I am Cynthia Caden, founder of Trick My Crib Nursery and Kids Room Designs, where I help your nursery dreams come true. I'm excited to talk to you today about saving money on crib bedding. The crib bedding can be one of the most expensive decorating items, and it is also one of the most tempting to go crazy off budget when buying. Similarly, it is one of the first things new parents regret spending so much on. First, experts recommend using breathable bumpers only, especially for babies that are rolling over or soon will be. Therefore, the bumper often comes off the crib in about 4 to 6 months and goes into the closet. Second, the beautiful comforter and matching pillow should not even be in the crib with your baby. So those pieces are lovely to look at, but hardly any function at all. So the crib bedding is an area where you can save big if you want to spend your dollars on function, because the only necessity for crib bedding is the crib sheet and a spare or two. That said, you don't have to sacrifice the look of a luxury crib with all the crib bedding bells and whistles if you don't want to. Find what you love and shop around to find it in your budget. Shop online, resale shops, and even garage sales for the bedding that most closely resembles the expensive set. Many sites even allow you to narrow your search by color, which is a real time saver. Also, check with your local resale shops and let them know what type of crib bedding you are looking for. They don't have a lot of floor space and may turn away your perfect crib bedding if they don't know you need it. I can help you find the perfect crib bedding as part of my flat fee design service. Please like Trick My Crib on Facebook and visit my page often for decorating ideas. Thanks for listening to today's money-saving tips, and be sure to listen to Preggy Pals for more great pregnancy tips in the future.
If you have some tips on how to reduce spending when it comes to your baby nursery, we would love to hear it. Call the Preggy Pals hotline at 619-866-4775, and we'll include your tip in a future episode. Coming up next week, we're revealing the top 10 reasons to breastfeed. Thanks for listening to Preggy Pals, your pregnancy your way.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
Hey mamas, don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording, so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.